Happy anniversary, TV Herstoryans. You know, it was in late June 2015 that I jumped into podcasting, selecting as my topical area the vast history of television that had been little discussed, barely written about, or glossed over, that which featured women as the actors, producers, writers, or catalysts. The stuff we saw on TV, the stuff that mattered to us. These anniversary episodes are a chance for me to share with you what I've learned in the past year and provide some longitudinal context to the TV herstory we see unfolding today. Now, it's been said that those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. And you know, that's part of the core mission of Advanced TV Herstory. While the tagline is connecting the dots of TV and feminism to American politics and culture, what I try to do is present the case for what happened, why it happened, and how we can use it as a lesson for the future. And sometimes it's just to tell a really good story that otherwise has been overlooked. In past anniversary episodes, I've bemoaned the fact, to great length for those of you who have listened in the past, that so few prominent women are written about in books, or that they were ever big enough to warrant a book deal for a memoir or autobiography. By the time most women of the silver screen or the small screen hit their 40s, they literally have slinked off to private life because there were no roles for women of a certain age, or they were tired of the sexist and misogynistic crap, or perhaps they didn't have enough interest or ability to reinvent themselves and remain in the public eye. I can cite examples and examples of women who were able to repurpose themselves. They're great stories. But there have been so many who really led tremendous lives who were never documented in books. So what does this all mean? It means that I look to somebody like Lee Grant, who is an Oscar and Emmy winner, who is now in her mid-90s. Well, she taught me so many lessons this year just through her body of work, and I really encourage you to explore her career through the books and videos and more. Her memoir is from 2014, I Said Yes to Everything. Wow, it caught my attention for her recounting of kind of two areas that I have a lot of interest in. First, she was one of the few blacklisted women of entertainment who actually regained her career. As a young actor who was married to a producer-writer who was also blacklisted, she was targeted by the anti-communist forces. They watched her closely for allegiances and statements, and lo and behold, Lee Grant spoke a eulogy at a colleague's funeral, and that earned her a 12-year ice out from the industry. To understand what people are doing today and the courage that it takes to speak out today, which could have an impact on their careers, we only need to look at a Lee Grant who is a living specimen of this lesson. I can't emphasize that enough. So then Lee Grant returns to acting and later producing, and her whole life at that point is still very fascinating. Do you remember Lifetime Network's Intimate Portrait series? It was from the 90s and went into 2005. She directed 45 episodes of that admirable series. If you don't know what it is, basically they were 44-minute-long video biographies. They were compilations of screen work or of written work, famous women, quotes from their memoirs if they had them, interviews with family members and friends. And boom, 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 for 15 years, the Intimate Portrait series painted a picture of not just American women, international women, and their impact on American culture and politics and the world. I love that series. And as one, like myself, who complains that publishers have little interest in women's memoirs or biographies, I see in Lee Grant's work a close and kindred value. She used her lifetime of industry contacts and skill sets and values to shoulder much of the content that made Intimate Portraits a part of TV herstory. 45 episodes. Because before IMDb and Wikipedia, cable TV was the smartest, most expedient way to get history to the American public for free. Her contributions to TV herstory are many, but capturing interviews of then aging and now dead performers, speaking about women colleagues in the entertainment field or world politics, or that they were speaking about themselves, that holds immense value because it's something that had not happened. No one else was doing this. So please read Lee Grant's I Said Yes to Everything, the link is in the show notes, and find intimate portrait episodes on YouTube and reacquaint yourself with what it means to take the knowledge that you have, the interests that you have, and spin it into something totally new and something that fills a void. In my monthly e-newsletter, I shared my Lee Grant observations and asked whether I should pursue an interview with her. Oh my gosh, responses came back overwhelmingly supportive. Yes, 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 see if she'll chat with us. I'm still working on it, but please subscribe to the newsletter for an inside view of actions and thoughts that never make it to social media. Go now to tvherstory.com. My points about the preservation of history, which is usually written by men, and about Lee Grant's convictions have proven true in my research for a book I'm working on with a retired professor of law here in Minneapolis. Our data set is a list of about 100 TV episodes, and my research, in addition to viewing and recapping all of those episodes, that's a lot of TV, let me tell you, is scouring books and articles and interviews that pertain to the episodes, specifically, the showrunners, the writers, the whole culture around the episode that was created. Now, I have a lot of respect for the late Stephen Bochco, primarily for Hill Street Blues and the first season of LA Law. Those are seminal contributions to the golden age of quality television. But in his memoir that Bochco self-published in his late years while he was battling leukemia, it seems like a dictated memo of arrogance and privilege, with occasional references to women who he worked with, who for the most part he deemed difficult to work with, and he mentions Lee Grant by name, or those he didn't trust were up to the job. You've heard that line before, right? So he goes on to describe his Bochco glory days, and his very best stories, as you might expect, were of series that he worked on as a up-and-comer with hardly a credential to his name, or at least that which would have been equal to the job that he was given, or that he hired guys from similar situations with, we're going to use his potential, all of that potential stuff, or that he hired guys who others deemed difficult to work with, but by golly, their work was gold. In doing research, I stumble into that kind of attitude, that kind of preserved privilege that would never be questioned. And so I think about these 8 years of national turmoil that I've been podcasting through, that we've all lived through. And it's political, social, cultural, and sometimes it becomes personal when families break apart due to intolerance. And it's at those moments that to me it feels like there are thousands of history pieces scattered on the floor. And yes, it's overwhelming and it's unsettling all at the same time. How did we get here? And yet in 2015, when that was all starting, Stephen Bochco had no problem boasting and denigrating without regard for his reputation. He was going to say it. He was going to write it. It was going to be published. And yes, Bochco remains an icon in the industry, and many would question why his memoir is anything but the truth. In that same year, the Geena Davis Institute on Gender and Media, which I've spoken of off and on, was gaining momentum and had created a catchphrase to teach representation. Because 8 years ago, people weren't thinking about that. They weren't thinking of themselves in relationship to other people, to other groups of people, to people who maybe hadn't had as much opportunity provided as they did. And so they came up with, if she can see it, she can be it. That's the essence of representation. For 8+ years now, they've been documenting why it's important. Why is representation important and how it happens? Well, we're 8 years wiser. We kind of get that now, although we still have to keep educating and re-educating. But it's that today we can now see the importance of representation. Corporations, legislation, the judiciary, and that it's happening across these industries, across countries, across generations, and the populations of other beyond just women, LGBTQ, older people, people of color, indigenous people, people of physical condition. And that is how the Geena Davis Institute on Gender and Media has shifted the focus, not just to women, not just to if she can see it, she can be it, but rather all of those who previously were just considered others. That's really important. These 8 years, if you feel like your head is spinning, it is, because we've experienced so much. And so I bring it back to this podcast, which started that same year, and we continue to keep an eye on the ball with this factual and contextual knowledge that comes from doing something this long. Yes, I've loved TV since the first summer that I spent most of it in the basement watching cable TV. But these 8 years, I have really come to have a much greater knowledge of an industry that otherwise I have no stake in. And I think that makes me an even more unfiltered reporter. For this past year, I will say that there is no question. One highlight of podcasting was my Zoom interview with Mallory Lewis, the daughter of ventriloquist and children's TV pioneer Sherry Lewis. Mallory's sister Lamb Chop was on the call too, and I don't ask softball questions. I kind of get right into the meat of things. I want to elicit from the people I interview why it's important for people to understand something that they haven't heard before. And I was really curious, and Mallory did a great job of explaining why the rights to the Lamb Chop image and likeness ended with Sherry's death, and the work that she continues to do, Mallory, to try to regain those rights. Because those rights are Sherry's legacy, and her legacy is all about quality TV programming for children, the educational value that she brought to an incredible career. As you can see, I love that episode. Another highlight is that this podcast is now recognized on IMDb. It's going to take a lot of work to build the profile on that site, but since I've interviewed more than a dozen women who also have IMDb profiles, I hope Advanced TV Herstory will grow to reach a whole new group of listeners. This is pretty exciting. But you're asking, what can we expect in the coming year, Cynthia? Well, for sure, we will have 1, if not 2 episodes celebrating the lives of TV women, both those who were in front of the camera as well as behind, and the writers and the producers and the regional news people. We always lose just a wealth of talent every year. And in 2023, we know already that Raquel Welch, Tina Turner, General Hospital's Jackie Zeman, these were all incredibly talented women who we've already lost, and they deserve celebration, but that list gets rounded out with women whose names aren't as big, and that's as important. And we will work to secure some interviews with a few people. I'm not sure yet, so I can't say. And I have a series and some episodes that I intend to discuss in depth, sort of like what I did with Cheers. The Cheers episode, which talked about 1982 and the barmaids, Carla and Diane. They were barmaids. And in 1982 and the economics and sort of where women were and how women saw themselves versus how men wanted to write episodes about women, it was a kind of not the greatest step back in time, but I felt like I needed to do it. Anyway, my work on the book often creates unexpected opportunities for the podcast, so I can't predict everything. However, given where we've been these last couple of years, I will say without too much reservation that this year will hold more whiplash-inducing change, even in the seemingly mundane world of TV watching. Because right now we've got the Writers Guild, which has been on strike since the spring of 2023, and we're hearing that the Actors Union may join them as well. What are they striking for? If you haven't seen that or don't quite understand it, it boils down to 2 big things. Number 1, the compensation to writers that factors in the increasingly Byzantine business relationships and the verifiable viewing statistics for first-run and syndicated air shows of their work. So they get residuals based on their work, the episode that they worked on or had a number of different roles on. And as that episode airs and then re-airs in different places, they are compensated. Well, the old contract was written before streaming was as widely available as it is today, and before the show owners, who are the one end of the contract, also owned the streaming service, thereby owning the data of how much it's even been viewed. There's not a lot of transparency in this. Secondly, the writers and the actors are gravely concerned about the introduction of artificial intelligence into their spheres It's being incorporated into the projects by the very same companies that are reaping billions in profits and unwilling to budge on the payment formulas, as described a minute ago, that allow writers and performers and crew to earn a livable wage. Bottom line is there's a lot of money in the hands of a few people who think that they control the future of entertainment. I don't say that cavalierly or glibly or in a bomb-throwing sort of way. I say that just because things have happened to reduce, believe it or not, your access to the shows you love, or to create that access, but for a high price. You would think that for that high price, some of that money is going back to the people who created the art in the first place. So will American ingenuity outwit them and take entertainment in a whole new direction? Well, we're talking about legally binding contracts and ownership of intellectual property. It's hard to know if that's even possible. And people will try it. But the people who are affected by this corporate greed, whether in this industry or any other, are real people with real mortgages or rents. They have real health insurance needs. Artificial intelligence is a lucrative can of worms that no one is prepared to or able to control today. And that should concern everybody. Think of it this way. When your high school teacher or your kid's high school teacher talked about the importance of critical thinking, they were, believe it or not, attempting to prepare us for all this upheaval. This is history. If you don't study history, you are doomed to repeat it. And we have now sort of unleashed this incredibly powerful force, and we don't have the laws and we don't have the knowledge across all aspects of society and the economy to even understand its impact. So, critical thinking, they were attempting to prepare us for this upheaval to be able to understand the impacts of things. So while it's wildly overwhelming to think about all of this change as a whole, between artificial intelligence and the things that are going on in politics and society, and why people are running red lights more these days, to me, it's my goal that Advanced TV Herstory provides you with a refresher on critical thinking that gives you a safe space in your head, because I would like to think that I am modeling critical thinking for others and helping you model it for others. Television has long been a common ground, a sort of Switzerland of shared experience. This is our opportunity to take our new perspective on TV and reintroduce it into the conversations to make people realize that the future and the inclusion of everybody is a positive and healthy thing. So I mean it when I say that every time you choose to pull up my recording, that it's an honor. It really is. This is our time together to focus on something we love and that's important to us, and to breathe new life and meaning into it. You are why I podcast. Last fall, I bid so long to my talented longtime audio editor and media engineer, Catherine Yang, as her project plate overflowed. I consulted with a trusted podcast consultant and was paired with Mary Lou Morose, who has, really stepped in. Mary Lou is not only a meticulous audio editor, as you're experiencing, but she provides insights to me and knowledge about podcasting and the user experience that helps me and the both of us in our work. And when I say all of our work, I mean that to include the actual audio and sometimes video files of the show notes and the graphics. That's just for the production. On the social media side, we're sticking with Twitter as a primary promotion and interactive social platform, but who knows what tomorrow will bring for Twitter. But we're also on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Episodes are also, believe it or not, posted in Medium under my Advanced TV Herstory account. That's where you can also actually listen to the episode. For insights into what I'm reading, please follow me on Goodreads and Storygraph. Storygraph was a recently created Black woman-owned venture. It's the equivalent of Goodreads, but it is not owned by Amazon. How about that? And please go to tvherstory.com and sign up for the monthly e-newsletter. Your data will not be shared or sold, but honestly, it's the one place where I'm putting stuff in that otherwise does not go in social media. Just have to say that. In closing, Happy anniversary to all of you who listen regularly or only check in on us once in a while. We are happy to have you along for the ride. We value your time and your insights. Drop a line to advancedtvherstory@gmail.com. Leave a note at the website or message me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook. And I'll say it twice this time because I mean it. You're why I podcast. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.